All right, class, this is lecture 5 for your aerobic fitness class. Now, I know that on the paper it says lecture 6, but this is actually lecture number 5. Now, this is going to be a very short lecture, okay? This is going to, all I'm going to do is go into the details about aquatic workouts, the benefits of them, and why it's something that you should understand. Also, you have to, there's a couple of things that we have to talk about, like liability-wise, when are going to use the pool. But the big thing is that this lecture was supposed to happen at the pool in the field house. And now that we're on quarantine, it's not something where you can kind of go outside and do this circuit that's on here in a pool. Maybe if you do have a pool at home, this is something that you could do and use that as one of your activity assignments. But this is something that we are going to have to just take as the understanding as we have it. Okay, as in the situation that we're in, and it is what it is. It's something that necessarily right now we don't have to experience to feel, but you just want to have an idea. This was a way to give you some ideas of ways to do exercises in the pool that would be good to help kind of get some cardiovascular training in. Okay, so I'm going to run through the benefits real quick. And then I'm going to talk about some things just to consider as far as like liability, and then we'll be done. So the first thing is that this is a good way to train cardiovascular fitness. One of the benefits is that this is a different kind of stimulus, and because it's a different kind of stimulus, it's going to challenge the body a little bit more in a way that's kind of full body. So the good thing about having water is when you're in the water, there's always a resistance against you. So no matter what, you will be doing full body stuff when you're swimming in a pool. So that's one of the really good benefits of this. And because of that, if you're continuously doing work, we're going to challenge that aerobic system, which will then get some improvement in cardiovascular fitness as well. Okay, it's also very good because this is going to help improve flexibility and mobility, just because the water, will allow you to move your limbs and joints and body through ranges of motion that you might not be able to do on the ground. Just because of the way that the gravity interacts with our body and then we interact with the ground, there's just certain things that we might not be able to do outside of water. Well, within water, because of the difference in how gravity is impacting us, and the buoyancy that we kind of get in the water, you might be able to obtain better ranges of motion than you would outside of the pool. So you can actually get some improvements in flexibility and mobility, which are essential to a better quality of living. So if you have somebody who's really struggling to kind of move properly and they're experiencing, low back pain and, different types of tightness in their hips and groin, different muscles and whatnot, one way to attack that might be to get them in a pool and run a flexibility session in there. Another thing is it's going to reduce pain and fatigue. The water can be relaxing and it promotes blood flow. So when you're in the water as well, it's going to reduce the impact, and this is kind of the next, part of the next point, it's going to reduce the impact that you get on your joints from just general movement. Again, this has to do with the difference in how gravity and yourself are interacting with the ground, because the water is changing the buoyancy. So you're not impacting the ground as hard, or you're not even getting those impacts that you normally would in the water compared to outside of the water. So that's a really good benefit, especially for people who are rehabbing. So all of you in the PT world, this is something for you to really consider and understand that you might have to learn how to do. And lastly, it's going to just help reduce the monotony of typical cardio and resistance training. So for someone who is more in the general population and they're looking for different ways to stimulate the aerobic system, and they kind of have the flexibility and freedom to do other things, then getting somebody in the pool is something that you don't have to worry about as far on the end of them adapting. So you can still get a cardiovascular stimulus from working out in the pool, and that's part of that specificity thing, so you won't have to worry about if you're going to get a cardiovascular effect. Now, if you are having somebody who runs and you're specifically trying to aim to improve their aerobic system, getting them in the pool more than once a week is probably something that's going to deter you. It's just because it's not specific enough to the demand of the sport. But it's also something where if all you do is run, you have those people who run, log 50, 100 miles in a week. Well, then getting them in the pool might be a way to kind of reduce, the impact from all the running and kind of just relieve them mentally from doing the same thing over and over and over again. So those are really the benefits that you're kind of aiming for. So the populations that you're looking at using aquatics with are, it can really range to anybody, but the elderly population and kind of like that older, the injured population, so anybody with like orthopedic injuries is really good for this. And then you can also relate this to high level performance or even just, your everyday athlete, because again, it's getting away from the monotony of doing the same things over and over again. So, for example, I know ESU's football team during their camp, what they do is they actually get everybody every night in the pool just to kind of, it's like a mental break too, but it's also to help promote some recovery, get some blood flow all throughout the body, okay? So those are the benefits that you're really looking for. The things that we have to be cautious of, okay, is especially if you are running like a session or a rehab session or you're with a client, you have to make sure that you cover yourself, okay? Because getting somebody in a pool and more around the pool can be very, very dangerous, and you're risking a lot of injury there, right? So we have the one problem of being in the pool, right? And that problem obviously is, somebody drowning or for a cardiac patient, right? So anybody who is kind of in that cardiac world, understand that if your cardiac patient has a problem in the pool, then you need to have the knowledge of how to handle that situation as far as, trying to save their life, right? So that's something that you have to be seriously aware of, and you have to be ready, okay? If you ask Dr. Davis, when she was in Virginia, one of the things they used to do with their students that were in med school is they would actually ask one of the elderly people in like a general class that they had coming in to kind of fake a problem in the pool to see how the students reacted. So it's something that you really got to be aware of, because if that situation comes up, you need to be ready and you have no idea when it's coming. The other problem is out of the pool, right? So when we're having an orthopedic patient or an elderly patient or some athlete rehabbing, the danger of them being around the pool is it's slippery, right? So that's something where they can easily re-injure themselves, or even worse, or get themselves injured even worse, because they weren't careful, there wasn't a sign up, or you were being negligent by not helping them in the proper way, right? So the pool is a very good thing. It does have its benefits, but there's also some risks to that, and you have to be sure that you have yourself covered if you're going to get people in the pool. That is a very important point that you need to ensure, because just because you want to change it up a little bit for your client or your athlete, the last thing that you want is, one, something cardiac wise to happen, or two, them to re-injure or injure themselves worse because you wanted to get them in a pool, and that could come back and potentially ruin your career, right? So aquatics are a good thing. Just be aware that there is a little bit of risk associated with that, and you have to be careful, okay? So if you look at the bottom, this is a circuit that we were gonna do, and basically it's, we start with the kickboards, you can do leg lifts, you can tread water, you can do some breaches, you swim, right? So there's a lot of different things that you could do in a pool, and there's even aquatics aerobics classes out there for people. So if you're really interested in this is something where you can even go on YouTube and look up different ideas for this. If it's something where you do have a pool, I would really like to see what you come up with as far as a training session for your activity assignment for this week. Even though it'll be a video, that is still something I think that would be pretty cool. Again, if you don't worry about it. Just have an understanding of what the benefits and the kind of risks are when we're talking about aquatics. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be a very short lecture. Most of this lecture was pretty much designed for you getting in the pool and kind of feeling that out, like what a circuit can do and how it can really challenge you cardiovascularly. But since we can't do that, it's okay. All I want you to do is kind of move on to the next thing, and then we'll kind of go from there.